moving on, our next session is on measurement. And I think as marketers, you know that this is both a boon and a bane, especially when it comes to digital. So I've heard a lot of marketers tell me that, digital is the only one that is held to a very, very strong ROI metric versus other media. So who knows who saw the billboard versus who saw the television, but digital, every impression counts. And taking from that, we're moving on to our next session, which is on measurable content. And we have with us Manoj Rijwani to moderate the session from LinkedIn, Prakash Asudani from Carrier, Resha Jain from Sugar Cosmetics, and Udit Malhotra from MG Motors. Welcome, speakers. It's great to have you here.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Shiny, and welcome everyone. Prakash, Udit, Resha, really nice to have all of you here and looking forward to this conversation. Uh, as the topic of the session is around measurable content, so we're going to talk a little bit about content marketing strategies and how to measure the efficacy or otherwise of content marketing. But before that, I thought it would be good for all of us to, we can't ignore the elephant in the room. We can't ignore what's been happening around us for the last few months. So I wanted to, sort of go to each one of you and get a sense in a minute or two about how the last few months have panned out. What has surprised you? What have you learned that has, been really, really insightful from in terms of the brands that all of you represent? So Resha, why don't we start with you? You represent a very new, youthful, fresh company that's a D2C brand, Sugar Cosmetics. So tell us how have the last few months been, a little bit about what have you learned, etc.
Hi guys, hi everyone. Really happy to be here. Manoj, you're right. I'm part of a very youthful company, a D2C brand, and although we have a really big retail presence and everything, but we are primarily, direct to consumer. And I think for us, content was having a moment. As soon as this came in, lockdown was a time when we were put in the driver's seat, and there was no place, I think, for any content marketer out there. There was no place to hide. There was only this time and opportunity to grab onto, and we've seen some brilliant results with what we were able to do and drive. We, of course, all of us know that this was a time when a lot of people were on their phones and a lot of content was being consumed. And immediately, as I think we were also in a place where we were well positioned because we were already doing a lot of work. But I think this was a time that we could actually step onto the, we went full throttle, and we had a lot of initiatives. We've seen a record. We're looking at 500K plus on our Instagram in less than 10 months right now. So social media was very important. Actually reaching out to the consumer and talking about safety was very important. Making sure that we were relevant with our messaging was very important. Being extremely respectful, I think, is always the key with content. Also trying to be there with them at different steps. Not only trying, we weren't trying to sell because we couldn't also sell for a while as much as we could earlier, but we were really still staying connected. And I think content really got a chance to do that, to talk to people, to build community, to build a lot of I really think it was a great opportunity for us, and that's what has happened with us.
Awesome. So that's a perfect example of turning a crisis into an opportunity, Resha. Thank you for that. Prakash, I mean, you're the other extreme in terms of a brand that's very respectable. Literally, invented the air conditioner as we know it, and you've been in India for a long time as well. So it's a brand with a lot of salience. So what has the last few months told you, taught you, surprised you?
Yeah, sure, Manoj. So I think as for majority of the businesses or companies, Carrier also had those ups and downs, right? So the times were equally challenging as well as I would say exciting. So challenging, obviously, from a business perspective, but challenging from a perspective of the opportunities it actually has thrown up, right? So uh, this situation has actually helped Carrier to actually focus and drive our initiatives towards digital. So be it from a sales perspective, from marketing investments perspective on the specific digital platforms. So I think from a organization standpoint, that's what this has been kind of pushed a lot. Secondly, I think specific to the content side, uh, there is very contextual campaign that we were actually able to bring in for our influencers and our HVAC community, as we call it. HVAC means heating, ventilation, and air conditioning community, which is very, very contextual in today's time, where we actually talk about healthy buildings, right? So healthy buildings is something which is, you talk about lives of the having a better lifestyle, eating healthy, living better. But what about the spaces where we spend most of our times, right? So that is something of a concept that we have come up with, and I'm sure I'm going to talk about it more as we go forward. But I think we have seen a silver lining in the current situation, and that's how we have taken it up.
That's awesome, Prakash. I think Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, said that they've seen organizations go through 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 or 3 months. So, clearly that trend seems to apply to you as well. Udit, you represent MG Motors, a brand that's become much loved in a very short period of time, after entering the market in India. I know you've been through a few car launches even during this time. So tell us a little bit about how the experience has been for the last few months.
See, I think firstly, like you talked about 2 years in digital transformation. When we started our journey, I think MG is built as a digital first brand. We didn't have any native systems. We didn't have any legacy systems when we started our journey. So definitely, our journey started back in 2018 when we onboarded a transformation journey altogether. And this year we got awarded as IDC's DX Game Changer of the Year as well for our efforts that we put in 2 years back. So, the pandemic changed a lot for us, but from a content standpoint, if you look at typically auto as a market, it's had a V-shaped recovery altogether, and it's still recovering. And in the previous sessions as well, it's observed that people are moving towards it. But the biggest point of concern during the pandemic were two things. One was hope. The initial phase was deprived of hope. So we came up with a song of solidarity at that point in time with Dr. Rahat Indori. So that was his last composition that he composed, and it was called Raftar Wahi Hogi. But more from a need-based standpoint, what we also did was we introduced a offering called MG Shield Plus, and that offering actually provided doorstep delivery, sanitization, and hygiene for your vehicles. So biggest point of concern was in April itself, people said we'll not take deliveries of the cars. We need better ways in which cars are delivered, sanitized, or even for service, for example, if somebody is sending the cars. So making an immediate product, taking sanitization is and hygiene and mask, everything is going to stay. So we made it a new normal at that point in time, that this will be our standard SOP going forward, and we can go ahead and give that offering to the consumer. So that brought in a lot of confidence, because we were sanitizing the vehicle right in front of the consumer. Whether you want it at home, whether you want it at dealership, when even you're entering the dealership, there's a full sanitization procedure done in front of you. And one thing at large which is coming out overall is trust and transparency, authenticity with the pandemic, because there are a lot of things uncertain. So people are looking at content that is authentic. People are looking at transparency. People are looking at trust through any brand. And if you are able to do that, then you're trying to connect with the right kind of audience. I think those are a few anecdotes, from an MG standpoint and general consumer behavior standpoint that we've been able to observe in the last few months.
Very interesting, Udit. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, all of you. Prakash, now let me come to you. Since we want to talk a little bit more about content marketing, you're a company obviously which has both B2B and B2C, interests. So how do you view content marketing as a channel in terms of what parts of the marketing funnel do you see it playing a role in? How have you deployed it? Some insights into your approach and strategies towards content marketing.
Yeah, sure. Manoj. So just before I jump into the content part, just to give you a quick overview about how we kind of go to market from an engagement perspective, right, with our set of TG. So in our B2B and B2C air conditioning industry, we have a set of influencers called consultants and architects, right? So they play a very, very important role in two aspects, right? So when we talk about defining the product specifications of air conditioning in a project, So they not only do that, but at times they will also decide which brands actually go into the project. Right? So that's one part. The second is in our B2B business, the sales cycles are very long. Right? So at times we have seen projects closing in a span of say 18 months to up to 2 years. So that's how long it kind of takes for the closure. So it becomes very important to have that engagement going with these set of consultants over a period of time. And I would actually replace the term engagement with relationship building for our particular industry, because that forms the part, the core of how we uh, market our products for our brand per se, right? So from a relationship building perspective, I will now drill it down to two subparts. One is on the engagement side. The second is on the personalization side, right? So from an engagement perspective, what the consultants or these influencers actually seek is how a brand is able to add value to them, right? So how we are able to build knowledge, share some skills, not only with the individuals, the consultants, but also their teams, right? So that's the kind of a, I would say, unexpressed need or insight which they have thrown up, right? So if the brands which are able to engage with them, add value to them, probably those are able to connect better, right, in terms of relationships. So that's the on the engagement part. Coming to the personalization side, I think again there are two, three elements here. So from a communication perspective, you need not only have to look at only the CXO, right? So you need to have different people who are there in the organization. You have the CXO, you have the senior consultant or the junior staff. The type of content they will consume is very different, right? So we need to develop content pieces which are in line with that. Second is we also look at from a vertical perspective, right? So if we have a specific project which is coming up, whether it is data center, whether it is hospitality, whether it is healthcare, we need to have content pieces which are aligned to these verticals. So that will help bring some relevance, make the overall content piece contextual. So both from engagement and personalization perspective, that's how we kind of draw out an overall strategy on content. And in the end, how we deliver it is also important, because in the end, if they don't feel valued, right, as an influencer, how we are treating them or how what kind of information we are sharing with them, they will not feel connected. So that's our objective. And probably to take one example, as I mentioned about the healthy buildings program, which we have rolled out in this time, where I think typically any brand who starts with about how the product helps achieve certain uh, benefits or features of that product, over a period of time that kinds of builds up to how a particular product is impacting the overall community or people around us, or how it how is it impacting the overall comfort of people or the environment, etc. So we have taken that plan of a larger, I would say, message, and looked at this healthy buildings program. So here we have collaborated with Harvard University. So there are professors who actually come on board. They are doing webinars for us on this healthy buildings program. So it's kind of a neat package that has been built up not only through these webinars, but vertical specific case studies, white papers, brochures, video material, which is kind of all stitched up together over a period of this orchestrated journey that we have drawn up for these consultants. We are trying to send out these regular communication messages over a period of time. So that's how we are approaching the overall content strategy. So just to summarize again, two broad aspects to it: relationship building dependent on engagement and personalization.
Awesome. That is very insightful, Prakash. And I never thought of air conditioning consultants as influencers. So that's definitely a different way of looking at them. Thank you for sharing that. I'll come back to you in terms of more thoughts around measurement. Udit, similar question for you, right? So you are a very consumer. Obviously, you're a consumer brand, a mass brand in that sense, and you also look at multiple channels of marketing. So search is obviously closer to intent, video is higher up, right? So when someone says content marketing to you, what all does it mean to you, and where do you see it play like a key role in your funnel, so to speak?
I think again we built on content.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the roots. Nobody knew MG 3 years back. Okay, nobody knew MG is a 96-year-old British brand. What really helped is content marketing at the end of the day. I would not like to throw a lot of jargons, but we follow a 5C matrix, which is content, community, collaboration, conversation, and commerce. Even if it ticks three boxes out of the five, we go ahead with the project because every content piece is not meant to solve a commerce problem. Uh, that's how we operate in. But when we're looking at the fine line of content pieces that we are trying to create, firstly, there's nothing called B2B, B2C. There's a very thin line because everything in today's world is D2C when you're on digital, because you're, at least from a content standpoint, you're reaching out to the consumer directly.
Yeah.
Okay, so and then B2B is just B2B is hyper personalization for that particular CTO or CIO or procurement guy that you're trying to essentially reach out to. So when we are looking at our content strategies, either it is informative or educative content that people are looking, either it is content on human connections that we are trying to establish as brands. So Stories of MG is a classical example where we started our journey with classic car owners, and we found around 500 plus classic car owners in India when we started Stories of MG as a concept. And we also did something called Recreate the Magic, where we went to the roots of the city and tried to establish the brand. Or when you see the Hector launch, it's a human thing. When you look at Gloucester, it's the selfless car. Or if you look at the MGZ SEV, it's all about change what you can. So how we build this brand is we find human values and attributes, and we transit that back into a campaign. When we're looking at content pieces, like I said, when we look at information and educative content, let's say for an electric vehicle, or let's say even for a hybrid petrol vehicle, we have our innovation mascot, that is Avira, through which we're doing explainer content. Then Stories of MG, like I said, is humanistic content. And then obviously you have your brand level of campaigns. There's also a very, very strong leg that we've been focusing on extensively is the community pillar, because MG as a brand is built on four pillars, which is innovation, community, experiences, and diversity. When we started our journey 3 years back, community has been very, very close to our heart. So if you see our recent association with Photographers of India for the MG Gloucester campaign, Tripoto, we're in the third year of association with them for our web series, which is called World of MG. This is called The Unfinished Dreams, just started for this season. And similarly, when we are looking at cause-oriented and community-oriented content, or creating shared value projects, we have the Worth Waiting For project, or the partnership with the Better India. It's in the third year as well. And when we started this project originally, we also had United Nations Women come on board to support the entire campaign. So it's all about nurturing those relations and communities. I don't think content is always about touch and go, and you're not immersing into the human behavior. And it is a pervasive engine. You keep on learning. Yeah, with the beauty of digital is you can churn out at a faster speed. And that's how I feel it is an always on engine. It's an always on enabler to any company, not only just MG, but to any firm.
Very interesting, Udit. Just a sheer number of touch points you mentioned, and I'm sure there are more. Just give a sense of how comprehensive and diverse your content approach is. So very interesting to know that. Thank you. Resha, you obviously, as being a D2C brand, I think your content approach goes into like micro influencers and social commerce, if that's an established term already. So tell us a little bit about what content marketing means for Sugar, and what all have you tried?
I'm actually very much going to echo a lot that Udit said before me. That it's really, content. I personally don't know what other kind of marketing, there are only very few things which are not fueled by the content engine anymore. It's very effective storytelling at every stage of the funnel. At
Yeah.
Sugar, content actually is a part of every stage of the funnel. So we don't only look at getting new users to come and look at us, getting people to become more aware of the brand, of course, but we are looking at, engaging them, educating them, being a part of their journey, because it is so much to do with how they feel, with or without makeup. That's not the idea, because there are so many days that none of us do wear makeup. It doesn't mean that I'm not connecting with you anymore. So for us, it's a full funnel exercise. And I am one of those marketers, and I have had some people. Look, I really think that, like Udit said, not every content piece will sell, but I think every content piece does build some intention. So I'm very much want to own also all parts of the funnel, including revenue being a good and conversions being a good KPI, because that's what I'm doing when I'm building my consumer journey. And customer journeys are evolving as we speak. Things are just changing at rapid speed. And in digital, yeah, I think what advantage we have right now is, yes, the speed and the cost at which we can get to so many people. Otherwise, it was not a market where we could have seen the rapid growth that we've seen with sugar, or many other companies see, when they launch right now. So for us, it's a full funnel exercise. We have content for every piece, even including how we retain customers. And when we're talking about full funnel, I also want to talk about another funnel that a lot of people miss, which is the user engagement funnel. I don't only want people to come and discover us. We want people to come and shop with us again and again, to come and look at our content again and again, whether it's a blog, whether it's a video. And every channel is different. We play to the channel strengths. You'll never see an Instagram being a YouTube, a Twitter, a LinkedIn. Everything will have its own voice. A website versus an app will have, they have the same voice, but pretty much, whether it's mails, whether it's PNs, content is huge, right? Everything has a voice depending on what the user is doing on that channel. So we really optimize for the user. Trust and thought leadership is what, Udit said there were 5 things that should go in. Even we believe that, at least a few tick marks, and you should at least always be gaining on 2 things: trust and thought leadership, through whatever kind of content you are churning out. So and when you talk about social commerce, actually, very funnily, just before TikTok got banned, we were talking to them, and they really wanted to do it at that time. And we are now looking at these opportunities. We know China is only talking about social commerce right now. I think it's the next big thing.
Yes.
Look, I think we are still in a nascent stage, because video streaming, also being able to identify the right people who are going to drive social commerce for your brand, because these are the faces your brand will start getting associated with. So it's very important to be very sensible and not go in right out, all in. But I think it's very important to now start doing it. And we have a few measures. We do a lot of sessions, live sessions and other sessions. We're exploring some video streaming facilities where we can actually get to the people, tell them what and how to use the products, and be able to sell right there. So we had, yeah, so everything, full funnel.
Interesting, Resha. So if I can quickly follow up before I go to Prakash and Udit. So Resha, at what point you then start connecting measurement, right? Because you're doing so many things which are top of the funnel, which are consumer lifecycle engagement, which are even commerce. At what point do you start saying, okay, I've been spending all this money on consumer engagement. How do I measure whether it's giving me returns, or how do you measure the efficacy? If it's not ROI, then how else do you measure the efficacy?
No, actually, I think a lot of it has their own measurement metrics. When it's top of the funnel, we are looking at traffic. We are seeing just the sheer number of traffic. We are looking at search volumes going up. We are looking at community building, whether our followers are increasing or not. What is the kind of reach of our content, depending if it's a social piece. So it will be all of these different things on top of the funnel, but we measure at every end of the funnel. So once people have come in, how many new users, how many repeat users, how much can we drive those metrics to go up? When it's social media, we're looking at reach, we are looking at engagement, we're looking at saves, shares, followers. When it is, and it could depend on different social media channels, but pretty much these are the things. If we are looking at blog or SEO, we are looking at SERP rankings. So metrics depend on what kind of content, but yeah, we measure pretty much everything.
So you're looking at a lot of these signals as proxy for effectiveness, and that
Yeah.
as long as these are happening, eventually a revenue will come and ROI will come. Right?
And revenue starts showing, Manoj. There's
Yeah.
no way that top of the funnel increases and bottom is not, till the time there's something really wrong there.
Yeah.
So, there's something's broken. So everything will follow, I think. Another thing I do want to say is don't only measure your own content, definitely keep looking at how much people are looking for you and how much are people mentioning you. The brand starts coming into its own, you know how well you're doing when people are talking about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think unless you're somebody like Cred, I think everyone else needs to show revenue. So I can imagine that. Prakash, is coming to you. You talked about long sales cycles. You talked about some of the very typical nuances of your industry. So for you, then, how do you even look at measurement or efficacy of content, right? Because you want to even know for 12 to 18 months if something's resulted in an outcome. So do you also have similar signals that you look at?
Yeah, broadly. So I think, see, in any digital platform that you deploy, you will have those KPIs coming in, but you will have to kind of customize to your specific funnel or the things that you want to track, right? So from our business perspective, I would say there are two broad buckets that we look at. One is from an engagement perspective, and second is from a conversion perspective. So from an engagement perspective, we would actually look at more at a behavior score, that how and what the digital body language is of our leads or contacts, how they are actually engaging with the specific content pieces. Now, the behavior score could be again a mix of different KPIs or metrics. It could be on form fills, it could be on webinar registrations, attendance, it could be on the CTRs, email open rates, etc. So it's a combination of these things that we look at. The second piece which comes in the engagement is the relationship score. As I mentioned, for us, that is a very, very important piece to track. And we also don't want to rely on the judgment of the salespeople or the plan spec people, what they say as a relationship level with a consultant. We don't want to rely on that. So we want to obviously track, use the digital platform, see what kind of metrics we could actually deploy for coming up with a relationship score with each person, whether it is positive, negative, neutral to the brand. So that's on the engagement side. Coming to the conversion, I would say it's pretty much traditional kind of KPIs that we track. Probably starting with the qualified leads, going to pipeline, sales, and also the share of wallet of these consultants or the organizations or the end customers that we are looking at.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, the relationship score seems something very interesting and unique, I think, to maybe a B2B context, right? So interesting to know that. Udit, as we wrap up, similar question to you. I presume a lot of the signals that Resha was mentioning are some things that you also look at, search volumes, traffic, etc. But is there anything unique that MG looks at in terms of the context of your industry or your brand?
See, I think everything runs in parallel. So, when we are running a top funnel campaign, automatically, like, Resha said, bottom funnel actually starts converting. But there are a lot of external factors as well, that determine the situation. So let's say, for example, the festive season at Diwali, there is splurge spending that is happening. There is a V-shaped recovery that is happening. Searches is something that we constantly track. I think they are a huge upfront leading indicator, at least for our segment of, because it's a natural intent of somebody going to the web and talking about a product or searching the product itself. And for us, what's happening there is, what we've seen is whenever you release any video relevant to the brand, or let's say a campaign, automatically it adds to incremental level of searches when you go to your Google Search Console, or if you're seeing a Google Trends Index. So what we try to do is we also try to parallelize or accelerate the performance campaign at that standpoint to, let's say, custom audiences, to lookalike audiences, to our existing customer list, or let's say the customers who booked and who are still waiting for delivery, to churn out the cycle faster. So let's say if there is an introductory pricing running only for Diwali, or let's say only for the month end, we can accelerate that not only with the creative, but also with the existing communication that the person has seen in funnel. And lastly, while this may be said, this may be done a lot by a lot of marketers, but ad sequencing, ad scheduling definitely works. So for example, we don't run a performance campaign after 8 p.m. in the night. Doesn't make sense, because if the customer is booking a test drive or filling a lead form and it doesn't entail anything back to them, and they receive the call at, let's say, 12 next day or 9 a.m., let's say, they don't even know whether they filled up the lead or not. So I think those are the basic hygiene things that we're keeping, trying to maintain intact. Also for customer experience, we work with partners like Yellow Messenger and others, where we are trying to build a conversational AI on the website. Right now it's limited to, let's say, a few set of queries, but we're trying to make it as human as possible and less transactional. So we do feel that conversational engagement can actually lead to a faster churn, whether through content or whether through direct, bottom funnel engagement that can be brought into the picture.
Awesome. So you're looking at momentum from top funnel to actually drive closures on the bottom of the funnel, right?
Yeah,
that's what you said.
and depending on the performance on the top funnel for video engagement, let's say metrics, 50% view through, 70% views, funneling it down so that it adds relevancy to the funnel. And obviously keep acquiring new audiences, because we need to understand that every ad set on this earth hits saturation.
Yeah, and incrementality, yeah.
And half of the time, just the creative refresh would not do anything. Yeah. So fortunately, we had a DMP when we started, and while we are moving towards a cookie pool, there's a huge cookie pool that we've acquired in the last 2.5 years. So that's all first-party cookies. Nice. How can we ingest that data? How can we continue playing with that data actually matters.
Awesome. Thank you, Udit. Shiny, I think we're out of time. Do we have time for questions, or do we have questions?
Actually, we don't have time for questions, so let's take that offline if possible. But thank you so much. This was such a wonderful and an eye-opening discussion. Thanks for moderating this, Manoj, and thank you, speakers.